Everyone. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our Excel Basics class. Today is lesson 3. So just to introduce myself, my name is Katie Lebeds, and I am the president of Learning to Lean. And I am also the co-owner of a virtual assistant company called Top Knot Virtual Assistants. So thanks so much for joining me today. Today, this is lesson 3 for our Excel classes. And in today's session, we are going to cover conditional formatting, hiding rows and columns. We're going to talk about removing formulas from cells, and we're also going to look at how to create a pie chart. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first up that we're going to talk about today is conditional formatting. And conditional formatting is a fantastic resource for us to be able to utilize in Excel when we want to be able to easily see from a large source of data what things may or may not be at the value or have the answers that we want to be able to have. It's a great visual management tool. And so let's go back to our contracts tab that we looked at previously in the previous 2 sessions. In the contracts tab, we have a column F, for a contract in place. So that's a question here. Do we have a contract in place? Now, I would imagine if you're a large scale company that this particular spreadsheet could be quite large. You could have hundreds and hundreds of rows, hopefully, of these contracts that you're either working on or that you've won. So how do we make this formula, or how do we conditionally format this column to be able to automatically color the cells that have the word yes in green and cells that have the word no in red? That is this function right here. Up at the top of your screen on the Home tab, there is a box or a tab called Conditional Formatting. And for the conditional formatting, it can do a wide variety of features. You can highlight the cells. There can be some top and bottom rules. You can have some data bars, which are pretty cool looking with a gradient or solid fill. You can do color scales. You can do icon sets. And what that icon set will give you, if a certain value is in a cell, it could give you a green arrow up, or it could give you the traffic lights. So red, yellow, green, red, and yellow. You could have flags, etc. You could use these Healy circles here to be able to go ahead and fill in that information. So let's go to a tab that we looked at last time and look at our monthly actuals tab. So I want to look at, on my monthly actuals, I'd like to have a quick indicator of whether or not my grocery bills every month have gone above my threshold of $300. So I budget every month to have $300, for example, for groceries. And I'd like to see quickly on this piece of data here, all these columns of data. I want to look at my grocery line, which is row 6. I want to look and see how many times did I go over my threshold of $300 or my budget of $300. So I've highlighted using my left mouse button. I click on cell again, B6. I highlight my cell B6 through M6. Okay, so that's my 12 cells for the year for my grocery bills. Now I'm going to go to conditional formatting up at the top of the screen. I click on conditional formatting, and for this example, I'm going to use the highlight cells rule. That means it's going to highlight or color in the particular cells that meet my criteria. So for our example, as I mentioned before, I want to look at and see which cells or which months we spent more than $300 on groceries. So therefore, I can use this greater than function. So there's some different options. We're going to use the greater than function today. You could do less than. You could do the between function between two values. You could use the equal to, which is what I used in that contracts tab. I used the equal to function. So equal to yes made it green or no made it red. You can look for text in a cell that contains a certain number or letter. You can look at a date or duplicate values. These are what we would call the canned rules from Excel. So again, in today's example, I'm looking at my monthly grocery bills for the last year, pretend grocery bills, and I'd like to visually see how often we went over our $300 a month bill for groceries or budget. So I highlighted my values. So I'm looking from January to December. I went up to the top under the Home tab and clicked on Conditional Formatting. And then I'm going to click on Greater Than. So it's guessing. Excel always tries to guess. It thinks it's pretty smart. So Excel always tries to guess and see whether or not you agree with the guess. So we're looking at format cells that are greater than, well, it guessed 400. I actually said originally that my budget was 300. So I'm going to change that to 300. Then you can choose what you want it to do. So it's going to format the cells that are greater than $300 with what? Do you want a light red fill with dark red text, a yellow fill with dark yellow text, green, light red fill, red text, red border, or you can click on a custom format where you define it on your own. So if you're colorblind, this can be a challenge. You just need to know what your restrictions are in regards to your ability to see color. That's also important as you're creating something like this to understand your intended audience. That means, first of all, do you have anybody in the room that may be colorblind that no matter what color you're selecting here, they might not be able to see it or understand what you're trying to do. Also, remember, when we do red with red, anything with red means bad, right? So that's just kind of universally known. Anything with red is a concern. So we want to make sure that you are really highlighting what you want to be able to say with this format. So again, I'm selecting format cells that are greater than $300, and I'm going to go with the default, the light red fill with the dark red text. So as you can see on our grocery line here, row 6, it highlighted any cells that were over $300. So if it was $300 or less, it did nothing because we told it, just look at those cells that are greater than $300. So it did, and it formatted those cells to be that red color, the red text with that red, or I would actually say kind of pink background. Now, what happens if we change the value? I look back at the bills and I said, oh my gosh, I didn't spend $500 in December. I actually spent $250. So when I update that, it also updates the conditional based on the conditional formatting. So that conditional formatting is smart enough to know it's applied to these cells in this row. So as these values may change, it will apply that conditional formatting to it. So it's a pretty cool feature. You could apply that to individual rows. You can obviously apply that to individual columns or the entire spreadsheet, depending on what you are working on. Uh, but it's a pretty cool functionality. And now that I think over the years, people have used it so much that it's actually a button up here that says conditional formatting. So I encourage you to go back and play with this and see what works best for you in your spreadsheet. So next, we're going to look at inserting a new column here because I'm going to show you how to hide rows and columns and remove formulas from cells. We're going to do that all in the same tab. So I'm back again to our monthly actuals tab. And let's say, for example, I want to see the percentage breakdown of my spending for the last year. So I know what percentage of my money is going to each of these different items. So yes, obviously I can tell based on the totals here where I'm spending my most money, but I'd like to be able to see this by percentage. So I'm going over to column O, and I am typing percentage. And now I'm going to insert a formula for that percentage. So how do I determine the percentage that my mortgage was out of the grand total amount that I spent for the year? So I'm going to manually put in a formula. I'm going to type in the enter, or pardon me, I'm going to type in the equal key. So I hit the equal key, which on my keyboard is up at the top, the key just to the left of the back key. So I click enter and I put in the equal sign. So for Excel, when you put in the equal sign, it's telling Excel, I want to enter in a formula. And when you put in that equal sign, you're entering it manually, as opposed to using one of those formula buttons up here. So again, I put in equal, I select my amount, my mortgage total for last year, and then I use the slash or the divide by the total. So that tells me that when I take my total mortgage cost divided by my grand total, I get 0.3318992. Well, that's great, but I actually would like to see a percentage, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. We want to copy down this formula for the entire column of data. However, if you remember from our last class, if I just simply copy this down, and let me show you what happens. When I copy this down, I get a divide by zero error. Now, why is that? Well, when it copied it down, it took the original formula, N2 divided by N15. So N2 is here, my total for my mortgage, divided by N15, which is my grand total. However, when I copy that, it now takes N3 divided by N16. It increments our cells by 1, and N16 has nothing in it. So remember we talked about last week, sometimes for our formulas, if we want to make sure that all of these values here in the N column are all divided by that same number, that 32,540, we have to manually put in dollar signs, or like I called it last week, jail bars. So think of these like being in a jail cell, and those dollar signs lock in that value in N15. So I put in equal N2 divided by $N $15, which means every time I copy this formula down, it will always keep N15, that cell N15, as the denominator, and it will increment that N2 as the numerator. So for some of you, you just got a flashback to 7th grade. So I'm going to copy this down, get my crosshairs, use my left mouse button, I drag it down, and now you can see how it updated it. So it is now updated the second, the row 3. My percentage is now the formula N3, which is my total I paid for the year for insurance, divided by my grand total, which is exactly what we wanted. Well, wait a minute. This doesn't exactly show me percentage. So what am I going to do with that? Well, that's easy. So to show the percentage, I'm actually going to highlight my column of data here. I'm simply going to go to the top of the screen. Underneath the Home tab, there's a percent style, it's called when you hover over it, and change it over to percentage. So this helps you a lot. That's a quick and easy way to do that. This helps you tremendously because otherwise you have to do the math to figure out the percentage, etc. So this is a quick and easy way to get those all shown up as a percentage. So what value does this percentage column give you? Maybe, that's only just for your own sake, or maybe there's a column of data. If we go back to our contracts tab, maybe there's that value column that you don't want to display all the time, or, you're just becoming familiar with the salesperson. You don't need to have that information. So you can hide the column of data if you want. Any column, any row, and you simply do that by selecting the entire column. So where's my cursor, as I move it up to the top of the screen, I move it next to the O, and you can see my cursor changes now to a down arrow. I right click and click hide. Now, the only way that you can tell that you've hidden a column is that the divider between N and P now looks a little bit thicker than the divider between M and N. What happens if I want to unhide that column because I actually need it? Well, first of all, I can go in between N and P, put my cursor there, right click, and click unhide. Highlight N and P, right click, and click unhide, and then my percentage comes back. If you want to know whether or not you had an entire in a new spreadsheet, maybe your friend or your coworker sent you a spreadsheet and you weren't sure whether or not there were rows or columns hidden, you can select the entire spreadsheet by coming up here, right at the cross between 1 and A. That selects your entire spreadsheet. And you can right click into the column area and click unhide, or right click into the row area and click unhide, and it'll show you any columns or rows that were previously hidden. Are there reasons for being able to do that? Yes, absolutely. Sometimes you just need that calculated column because you're using it in a formula or function. Sometimes it's information that when you copy and paste this into a presentation, maybe you don't need that information. So yes, there are times in which we actually use that hide or unhide function. The next thing I want to cover is how to eliminate the formulas from these cells where we have formulas. So it just shows you the data. So there are circumstances. I helped someone last week with this. When you are utilizing an additional formula, maybe in another cell and in this spreadsheet or another spreadsheet, and you need to be able to have just the data in there. Otherwise, when Excel looks at my cell 06 that I'm clicked on right now with 13%, Excel sees N6 divided by N15. That's what Excel sees. It just displays 13% to us. So how do I remove my formulas without deleting the data? Well, that's an easy function to be able to do. So we're going to continue to use this percentage column as our example today. And I'm going to highlight the entire column by placing my mouse right next to the O, column O, until it changes to the down arrow. I'm now going to right click with my mouse and hit copy. So right click and hit copy. Anytime in Excel when you hit copy, you get the marching ants. So this is affectionately known as the marching ants. And you'll see those little marching ants, or you see the dots or the dashes that are moving then on your screen. You can then, I right clicked and hit copy so that it knows that I'd like to copy this. In the same column right next to O, I move my cursor right next to the letter O. I get the down arrow again. I right click and select paste special values. And now when I put my cursor inside those cells, I get the actual value and not the formula. So I'm going to do that again for you. And don't forget, up at the top, very top of your screen, my border's in green here in Excel. You can click undo, right? So undo helps you a lot, especially if you've made a mistake. I'm going to unclick or undo what I had done before. And if you accidentally highlighted something and you get the marching ants or the copy function is active, you can click your escape key to get out of that. So one more time, my percentage column has cells that have formulas, and I would like it to just have cells with the actual number in it. So I will highlight my column O, right click, select copy, right click again in column O, select paste special and values. And then that gives me the actual value in the cell and no longer the formula. To get rid of my marching ants here, or the copy function that's rotating here with the dashed lines, I hit escape and that goes away. So finally for today, we are going to do a pie chart. So if you haven't done a pie chart before, remember that a pie chart shows you your data as it relates to what percentage it is out of 100%. So let's look at an example and I'll show you a couple different ways to be able to do this. So far today we talked about our conditional formatting. We've talked about adding in this new column with our manual formula and hiding and unhiding. And now we're going to look at our pie chart. So because we already have the percentage here, we're going to use that data for our pie chart. However, I'm also going to show you if you did not have that percentage figured out, you can still use a pie chart and Excel will figure out the percentage for you. So I would like to have a pie chart that visually depicts how much or what percentage of my monthly bills am I spending for each item. So I will highlight using my left mouse button, I will highlight cells A1 through A11. Then I will hold the control key down and I will highlight the percentages for each of those items. So cells 0 or O2, O1 through O11, and then let go. So I have cells A1 through A11 with my left mouse button. Then I held onto the control key. I moved over to column O and I highlighted cells O1 through O11. Now I will go up to the top of my screen to insert. And we have this area up at the top of the screen that shows charts. I will see my pie chart here. And for this example, I'm just going to show you a 2D pie chart, which just means it's flat. It's not 3D, it's flat. So we're going to do a 2D pie chart. So it shows my percentage. It's showing me my percentage. I can change this. Remember, we had talked about this last time. We can write percentage. I just double clicked on the header, percentage of items for 2019. And this is a pretty cool chart, right? So this is nice. Gave me a pie chart, gave me exactly what I asked for. There's a different color here for each item. It has my items listed down at the bottom. So that's kind of cool. However, I really like data. So I would really like to be able to see on my graph the percentage for my spending for each area. So I am going to put my mouse button on the pie chart and I am going to right click and select add data labels, add data labels. So kind of redundant, but add data labels, add data labels. Say that 5 times fast. And then you get your actual percentages in your pie chart. So you can actually see the percentages. I can select all of them or one of them, and I could right click and change the fill to it. So I can change the fill to white, so it's a little bit easier, fill being background. I could do those all at once by just clicking on one of the percentages and it highlights all of them. And then right click and change my fill to white. I could also change the font size, the font color. Sometimes I like to see these percentages outside of the graph. So I can actually hold on, double click one of the values and drag it outside of the graph. And then it gives you that little indicator line. So it's showing you that that big blue, which here is our mortgage, is 33%. It's totally up to you. So have fun and experiment with it and see what you like and how it's displayed. So that is one way to do this. So I'm going to move this down a little bit out of the way. And I'd like to show you another way to do this. So let's pretend you have a large spreadsheet and you don't have a column for percentage. Totally cool. We can do this. So again, using my left mouse button, I'm highlighting A1 through A11. I hold down the control key and this time I select N1 through N11. I go up to the Insert tab. I click on my pie chart. We're still going to do a 2D pie chart. And again, it shows me total by item. So it's telling me that this is a pie chart based on total by item. Excel's already figured out this percentage for you. And you can do the data labels again if you'd like. Add data labels. But I don't know if that's helpful to me. So if showing it in a pie chart, but actually having the actual values instead of the percentage can be a little deceiving. It's like mixing apples and oranges. I do a pie chart because I want to see the value as it is a percent of the whole. So the whole pie chart's 100%. So having those numbers doesn't really help me. So I added in my data labels. And now that my data labels are there, I'm going to select one which selects all of them. And I'm going to select Format Data Labels. And on the right-hand side, you get this Format Data Labels function that shows up. And right now it's saying it's showing the value. Well, I'd rather see the percentage. So I'm going to click percentage, unclick value, and then I can close that. And now you can see, just like the other one, it is showing me my percentages. Change that fill to white so you can see it. And you can see now the percentages, which again, that's the intention of your pie chart, is to show you the percentage. You can play around with your pie charts or with any chart that you create. You can change the type of data labels that you have. You can delete them. I can add data labels here as a data callout. So what that does is it gives us kind of like those little bubbles. Just like you'd see sometimes it looks like somebody's speaking, but this time it shows you, it gives you your item description and your percentage. Again, if I right clicked on these and I went to format data label, I can unclick category name. So it's just showing me my percentage. I could do percentage and value. I could do category name, etc. Then I can also play around with the label position in the center, the inside end, outside end, or the best fit. So that's all we had on the agenda for today. So again, today we went over conditional formatting. We went over hiding rows and columns, removing formulas from cells, and we went over how to create a pie chart depending on the type of data that you have. So again, I want to thank you so much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate it. If there's any questions that you have on Excel and you would like me to cover in the next session, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly. Also, I will be inviting you to an Excel Basics group on Facebook. And the reason that I'm inviting you to that is that I have these actual Excel files that we review every week. I'm placing those in that Excel group so that you can download them for yourself and replay the video and play along by looking at the Excel file that you can download. So thank you again. Have an absolutely fabulous day, and I look forward to seeing you next week.